So hi, thanks for joining us on this session about Cisco 911 compliance testing. Quick rundown of the agenda for today's session. We'll just do the usual kind of quick rundown of house rules and usual refresher on who we are, UnifiedFX, for anybody that's new to us. Then generally what we're going to cover is just a kind of refresher, which I'm pretty sure most people are very familiar with by now, on the new laws that have been introduced recently or last couple of years, and there are some of extra elements of it are coming into effect soon. Then we're going to talk about how you can validate aspects of that, such as the 911 call routing and dispatch location information. And then really there's a little bit extra in this session that we've kind of, from when we've done this type of session before, we're going to focus a little bit more on the kind of dynamic elements such as fault desking and in particular remote endpoint testing. I've got a short demo video to cover as well, so it's not going to be a live demo, which I would normally do. Just get a kind of pre-canned one to save a lot of hassle. And then we'll kind of leave open for questions at the end. In terms of questions, if you're not familiar, and maybe the UI screenshots have changed yet again since we captured this, if you could use the Q&A panel and make sure you submit any questions to all panelists. There's a few of us on the session available to answer things that come up. So if you don't mind doing that, as I maybe mentioned in chat already, the session is being recorded, so you can email sales@unifiedfx.com and we'll get you a copy of the recording. And then finally, when we do the little kind of demo video, the way it kind of plays back might be a bit small in your end. There's a little kind of icon which should still be available to you that allows you to expand the kind of video demo that we'll be playing to make it fit the screen a little bit bigger. So that's that kind of little black bar at the bottom when we're playing the video. You should see that icon, unless it's changed since you last captured that. Okay, so UnifiedFX, preferred Cisco solution partner. Our three main products that we kind of typically talk about, etc., is PhoneView. Obviously, we're talking about PhoneView today, but in a very specific scenario in terms of how you can use it, obviously for testing against 911 services. But there's a whole, it's like a Swiss Army knife of anything you could ever want to do with managing endpoints. So used by lots of customers on literally millions of phones of various variety of environments. So, I'm sure there's a few customers on this session, and feel free to give us any feedback on this session in relation to how you're using it today. There's other parts of the PhoneView as well, which isn't even detailed here, such as the ability to send notifications, the ability to do single phone control. There's a kind of web-based variant that's ideal for help desk, which we call PhoneFX, etc. So not get into all of that, get kind of previous information that we've shared before. And obviously, as always, if there's anything in here that's you want to explore further, we can cover that with you. But beyond that, our other products worth mentioning are WallboardFX, which is by its own description there, very simple to install, easy to upgrade. It's 100% browser based, and quite importantly, it's got the fastest real-time updates technically possible, so that as your contact center information changes, we can show you that within sub-second timeframes, which is really helpful for some customers. And then finally, we've got MigrationFX, which is something that we created on request of Cisco when they were going through the whole kind of mechanism for replacing old Cisco phones for new. Don't know how far that has gone for some customers, if they're still get a lot more old phones out there they want to replace. But when we put that together, we actually came up with a novel approach, which we actually ended up getting a patent for, which means it's literally as easy as unplugging the old phone and plugging the new phone in. And we use topology data and some clever tricks in the back end that allows us to just seamlessly convert that configuration over, even though it's two completely different models. And there's other aspects of that, but it's been very popular because of how simple it is to use, basically. Okay, so get on to the real kind of content. So as I say, most people are probably familiar with this by now in terms of the requirements within US law to provide effectively, consistency and simplicity from a routing and a dialing perspective. Obviously, that's Kari's law covering the fact you need to be able to dial 911 without any prefix. A component of that, obviously, is to notify the front desk, security department, etc., with whatever means appropriate as well. And then Ray Baum Act is, I would say it's actually a bit more of a challenge overall because dial plan validation is not too difficult generally. But location information, maintaining it, updating it, especially in a dynamic environment, obviously has a number of challenges, which, there's various kind of solutions there, some obviously native from Cisco and some from third parties. Obviously, the key date in there is January next year, when support for hot desk scenarios needs to be incorporated. So obviously that's what we're trying to focus on in this particular session is techniques that you can use to validate those hot desk scenarios. But in general principles for validating 911 calling, obviously you need to make sure that the dial plan matches or has been updated, which I'm sure most of you have been doing already or have done by now. So it's probably a kind of post-tense comment that way. And if you do want to prove that routability, an important point of feedback that we've been getting from our customers that have been using our software to help them with this is obviously the aspect of two-way audio. So if you do dial the actual real 911 service, you can't obviously just have a one-way audio and not be able to speak to the operator, etc. So we've got a mechanism which will demonstrate and describe how we can establish that two-way audio when you're testing basically any endpoint, hard or soft, in any location. We would class that as disruptive testing. I'll try and describe that a little bit more later. But ultimately, we can take any Cisco endpoint in any form that's registered against the call manager remotely, etc. As I say, desk phone or soft phone, and we're effectively doing a conference call into that. We'll talk about that a bit more in a second. But effectively, PhoneView is giving you interactive control of your devices. That's just the general premise of the product, which you'll see a little bit of in the demo video. But at the end of the day, you can either interactively set the call up and conference in the tester, so to speak. But the kind of example we've got down the bottom here with this PhoneView macro is a simple instruction. Now, you'll see this in the demo, but it's worth kind of covering a little bit more detail what the mechanics are kind of behind this. Is, as I say, PhoneView is a flexible tool, allows you to do almost anything with phones remotely or endpoints remotely. And what you're looking at here is 3 simple instructions. Now, the way that our kind of command structure works is it's got a nice simple user interface. You can have a keypad, you can click buttons, you can type in numbers and dial them and all those kind of good things interactively. But we also have a kind of macro concept, right? And this is an example of one of them. So you can combine multiple actions into one. And at a base level, if, for example, you want to make a phone call to a particular destination, there's multiple ways we can do that, but one of the key features that PhoneView has is pure logical CTI call control. And what that means is we can do logical CTI operations. So that first one is CTI colon call, forward it, CTI colon call 911. That is simply targeted when you're running that against the remote device. It's telling that remote device to dial 911. Then you have the pipe character, the vertical bar there. That's the delimiter, so that's leading us into the next command. The next command in this case is pause. This particular command will wait for 1 second by default. You can give it an optional argument of milliseconds. You can control that duration, but let's just take it as read, which is 1 second. Then the next pipe character is CTI conference mobile. That basically indicates that your CTI conference operation to a destination. Now, I've got mobile in brackets there because, for example, that could be your mobile number, or obviously be any other destination that's reachable from that phone. And you're just really doing a three-party conversation, but initiated in a single operation. And that's ensuring that whatever that conference number is will be party to the conversation with the 911 operator. But the call is effectively initiated and going through the device under test as such. So that's really the general premise of validating 911 from the exact perspective of the device under test. That I would class or reclass as disruptive testing. So effectively, if there was a user sitting at their desk, it is their device you are, directly testing. So, if they're sitting at their desk at that point in time and suddenly it starts dialing 911, they might be a little bit concerned. So obviously, whenever you do these kind of tests, you need to be mindful of that. But we do have certain situations where we can do non-disruptive testing as well. So that's worth consideration. The next part is for validating dispatch location. Now, obviously, a way to do that is to actually directly call 911 like described earlier, and actually speak to the operator to validate the information. Now, generally, and I'm sure this varies kind of, carrier by carrier or state by state. There may be different rules and regulations or approaches that you would take for that. But in our reading of the situation, generally speaking, you would contact the relevant authority and schedule a time to perform those test calls so that they're not they can be managed at their end. Obviously, that's something you wouldn't really do extensively. It's not something you would necessarily do frequently either. So it's maybe just initial configuration and testing of a platform or a system that you might go through that particular approach. But as I'm sure a lot of people probably take advantage of, especially when it's available, is a number of test facilities and providers have a 933 or equivalent test service, which is ideal because it means you don't have to speak to a person, you don't have to effectively disrupt the normal 911 operation and service, and because it's just an IVR service, it's nice and automated. And ultimately, all these services typically do is read back the location information that matches what was sent as the corresponding dispatch location for that call. So from our perspective, you don't really need to be an active participant in the call to do that. So you could do exactly the same thing I described earlier, where we set up the conference call. That's fine. You don't need to talk to the IVR service typically, so that wouldn't really be necessary. So in that particular occasion, you can take advantage of another PhoneView feature, which we kind of tag as remote audio. And just a little bit more detail on that feature, for anybody that's not familiar with it. Effectively, it takes advantage of Cisco's contact center functionality, specifically the silent monitoring feature. What that allows you to do is leverage the built-in bridge functionality, which almost all Cisco endpoints provide. And effectively, it's like a conference call, but one of the good things about it, it doesn't really directly affect the actual normal call routing and call records. It's really just effectively like an ad hoc bridge that sends a copy of the audio from both parties to the observing party or the supervisor if it was in a contact center situation. So PhoneView's had that capability for a long, long time, and a number of our customers take advantage of that in lots of different ways. So obviously, it's worth highlighting this particular feature because it does play really well to the 933 testing situation. Again, this is something that's actually in the demo, so you'll get to see this in action. But fundamentally, you have your remote endpoint that's available to you. You initiate the call to 933. Once it is connected, there's a little icon we have on the toolbar, a little monitor icon. You click that and it will bring in the whichever admin phone that you tag or admin endpoint. That will be listening in on the call, and then you can obviously listen to the announced dispatch location, etc., and check that against your records. So it's all pretty straightforward, as though you were doing it at the device. And the whole premise of PhoneView is that you can test anything anywhere without having to physically go there, which obviously speeds up your and extends the depth of your testing. So another piece of information that's worth pointing out is that PhoneView itself gathers quite a considerable amount of information relating to endpoints, such as switch port, subnet information, device pool, location fields, etc. So it's quite handy if you're even trying to identify devices that you want to perform tests against, that you can actually match that to those kind of physical aspects of your network and choose the relevant test phones based on that information. And obviously, if you're doing a dispatch location validation, such as a 933 call, you can then check your records and make sure that the announced location matches what you'd expect that kind of physical switch, for example, to be recorded against. So that's the general premise from a kind of testing high-level point of view. Now, go on specifically to the kind of hot desk or mobile aspect of it. Something I've really talked about before is just being about the principles and mechanics that you can apply. Now I just want to touch a little bit more, but on effectively corporate network and non-corporate network scenarios, which really relates more to the dynamic aspects such as hot desking. So on this particular slide, not exclusively, but it's really kind of focused against your extensibility on corporate network type scenarios. So if you've got extensibility deployed and you need to be able to ensure that regardless of whichever user's logged in where, it's the physical aspect of the phone's location information that's correctly portrayed to the 911 service, then you can take advantage of PhoneView's extensibility features to log users in and out. The PhoneView mechanics, etc., for controlling phones and such, also works with extensibility cross-cluster. Obviously, that's a feature that's not necessarily heavily deployed by people, but some larger banks, etc., have certainly got a level of extensibility cross-cluster deployment support. So we've assisted those customers in those situations. When we say soft phone support here, I'm really talking about a person coming into the corporate network, pairing up their laptop and using the soft client on their laptop because maybe they don't have a desk phone available or that they want to use. Now, we'll go into disruptive and non-disruptive testing, but obviously it's just basically registering the corporate network, and the subnet that soft phones are signed against can get mapped back to its location. So that will all hopefully happen as expected. But the point is, because we support soft phones within PhoneView, it gives you the ability to drive them to perform those same tests. Another point worth noting is because PhoneView allows you to see the screens, the actual real physical phone screens with the right prerequisites in place, then if you do actually notify to the desk phones themselves, like the kind of text message functionality, you might have additional notifications, obviously, to emails and other kind of text message services. But if you want to validate that the actual text message sent to the phone display, the Cisco phone display that is, worked, then because PhoneView can show you the actual phone screen, that gives you an extra angle of validation that's worth mentioning as well. And then really, as I've kind of talked about in the previous slides, you can take advantage of the remote audio feature for the 933 scenario, test the dispatch location. When I'm using the term remote conference there, that's just really that macro concept I was talking about, so that can be done for 911. And I'm going to talk about the virtual endpoints in a little bit more detail on the next slide. There's not a lot of content in the next slide really, but more of a discussion thing. But they're used in the demo as well. But I just want to, for anybody that's not familiar with the concept, highlight this as a very powerful feature that PhoneView has. And let me try and describe this best I can. So normally, when you're doing testing of or using soft phones, etc., you will be using, the typical Cisco soft phone client as such. Say, for example, the Jabber client, the Windows or the Mac version installed on the PC accordingly. But what we actually managed to do with PhoneView is we embedded the actual Cisco soft phone client inside PhoneView. So not only can PhoneView control phones, it can become a phone, or another way to phrase that, not only can it control hard and soft endpoints, it can become a soft endpoint on its own. And that opens up a lot of scenarios, especially from a testing point of view. We can do end-to-end testing in contact centers, as you can be a customer phone calling in, you can be an agent on the way out, and do all your IVR, DTMF in between. But from a 911 testing perspective, what that effectively means is we can take a Cisco Jabber endpoint, which is now extended, which should, we have done testing, which also includes, what's it called again? The Webex UC calling client. So, the actual Webex Teams client as it was, which is now the Webex client. So that now incorporates UCM registration as part of it, but it actually appears basically like what's called a CSF device, client service framework device, which is the same device type that the Jabber endpoints run. So the great thing is we have that same kind of Jabber client registration that can register directly within PhoneView multiple CSF devices very quickly and easily, just a right-click register option. And when you do that, effectively PhoneView becomes the actual client with the media, etc., all terminated within PhoneView. So you'll see that's really what's used in the demo as well as the virtual endpoint. But what I'm just trying to kind of point out by that is you're not tied down to any restrictions of using the official Cisco client. And one of those restrictions would be you can only install and log in and register one user at a time with that client, obviously, because we have our own implementation of it, and we've structured it in a way that allows multiple simultaneous registrations. That allows us, as we term it, to register multiple virtual endpoints at the same time. Maybe not so much of an issue or benefit having multiple endpoints registered at the same time on one application for 911 testing. It's probably just going to do one test at a time. But nevertheless, it does give you a lot of flexibility. Okay, so that's me kind of giving you a rundown of the kind of on-corporate network side of things. But when it comes to remote endpoint testing, so obviously these are situations, and I've got some of them in the table at the bottom there, where it might be a physical phone registered via MRA or via the AnyConnect VPN configuration, etc. Or you might have a cell phone, obviously, remote via VPN, etc. And this table is really just pointing out the types of things that PhoneView allows you to do. And obviously, it's everything that's relevant from a 911 perspective, which is the ability to make any kind of calling, such as direct calling, conference calling, remote audio functionality. And also from a visibility point of view, so that means you can see what's happening on the device, who is calling, and the CLI information, etc. That's what the rendering feature allows you to do. I'll maybe describe the image render a little bit clearer. And what that effectively, what we're saying is the ability to see what's happening on the endpoint. We have two mechanisms. We have a screenshot mechanism where we basically take a one-off or a regular screen grab of what the same thing the user sees, so of what the actual screen content looks like. That's what we mean by the image column there. That has restrictions because we have to get it from the phone's web server. So it's typically only available via on-prem or AnyConnect with the right VPN configuration. It's definitely not something that you can even get from a soft phone, so it's not even possible. And just to be clear, every other remote control tool that we've ever come across, that's the only way they can actually visualize what's happening on a device is using basically screenshots. But a key thing that we added way back a while ago is the concept of screen rendering. And what that does is it takes the CTI, or the signaling information effectively, which represents the call state of the devices, and we have a visual kind of representation that we map that out to render, to emulate effectively along the lines of what the user's seeing on the phone. Not everything that they see, really just the kind of call activity, etc. But what that does mean is if you are doing call testing, etc., you can see exactly the call data that's happening, who's connecting to, how long it's connected, that kind of thing. The control aspect in that table is really talking about the types of things that you can control on the device. And I've got them in two broad categories. Ultimately, it's making phone calls, or, is the calling aspect of it. And we're highlighting the word settings there, but that's like everything else on an endpoint, like configuration management and things like that. So that's just highlighting that we can do set local settings, configurations, etc. on desk phones, but we can't do it on soft phones because there is no equivalent mechanism. You kind of have to go through Active Directory and config file systems to do that from a soft phone perspective. So that's a separate set of tools and mechanics. But the key thing is, from a 911 testing perspective, we've got all the calling abilities for all different endpoint scenarios and all the visualizations, right? So that's just a bit of background about what makes our software different compared to anybody else because of the soft phone support. And if we kind of explore the remote scenario in a bit more detail here. So when we're talking about a remote home and hard or soft phone support, what I'm really highlighting there is the MRA, AnyConnect, and remote soft phone. So there's kind of three items in that table there. Because we've got those checkboxes, we can control them, perform tests, etc. I've got two categories here that I want to talk about, disruptive and non-disruptive. And what I really mean by that is, and hopefully it's phrased in that sentence properly, is this is really in-place testing. So the device is there, especially when it's a physical device, obviously. It's in its normal environment and configuration, etc. And you're just controlling it. If there's somebody there, you're being disruptive. So I was talking about that a little bit earlier. But a thing that's available to us, which is, again, unique, is the concept of non-disruptive testing. And part of what allows that to happen is the virtual endpoint functionality. So again, this is talking about the fact that PhoneView can become an endpoint itself. And quite literally, all you do is you locate the particular Jabber configured device, etc., the software entity. You right-click on it, you choose register, and it will go online effectively. But it'll go online from the perspective of where PhoneView is running. Now, that effectively means that it's the exact same user extension, configuration, kind of profile as though they're connected on their own PC, but it's obviously brought online within the machine running PhoneView. And by doing that, it's just like registering an end user on a different endpoint, a different computer, right? And fundamentally, that's what it is. So therefore, if we make phone calls and do some testing, it's non-disruptive on the basis that it's not sitting in front of the person. It's not, disrupting what they're doing. Obviously, you can't register at the same time. So if the user was logged into their soft phone client, you're going to log them out and log it in inside PhoneView, so it's disruptive from that point of view. But obviously, as long as you do these things when you know the user's offline and you see all that information in PhoneView anyway, then you're definitely going to not disrupt them when you do this. And a point that I just want to highlight here is the reason why we can do any of this from a 911 perspective is if we, with the right configuration, if you do have PhoneView set up on a subnet that doesn't have any mappings to any ELIN numbers for the location information, then in general, that should mean that the location data, if you dial 933 for etc., should be mapped to the last known location. But obviously that's specific to maybe the system that you're testing, the third-party components, etc. But the point is, if you're able to use those virtual endpoints in a non-mapped location, subnet, etc., then it should use the last known location information for that device. Bit of a long explanation on that one, but it's hopefully just kind of give you a flavour of the the remote and the soft phone aspect of it. Okay, so that kind of leads into the technical challenge of the demo.
Welcome. In this short demonstration, we're going to show you how to test 911 services. So if I choose a physical phone, which is remote, and I want to be able to test 911, because we need to speak to the actual operator, you can use, for example, a simple macro to dial that number and then conference in a local phone. So I've got a remote phone here. I'm going to send that macro.
Operator, what is your emergency?
Hello, this is not an emergency call. This is a test. Do you have a moment to verify my emergency information?
Certainly, please continue.
Can you verify the address that you received my call from?
I have the West Wing, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, as your location.
That's perfect. Thanks very much for your help.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
There we go. We'll just hang up the call. And so that's us able to listen in remotely by conferencing in a local phone, a soft phone in this case, or it could be a mobile phone. Simply, the macro structure here is to dial 911, wait a little while for it to connect, and immediately initiate a conference into the party who's going to join the conversation with the 911 operator, because obviously you need to have a two-way dialogue with them. Now, what you can also do, and some providers have this facility, is you can actually dial a 933 service or an equivalent to that can actually have an IVR prompt which will read back the address for you. So in this case, I'm going to again go to this remote phone. So again, this is to prove where it is. And a good thing if you're running through these devices, if you get a few of them, is we've got lots of information in terms of location, subnet, switch information that you can use to filter and select individual remote phones to work with. Now, in this case, I'm going to dial a 933 service, and it's simply going to read back location information. So if I quickly place a call, and then I'm immediately going to monitor it. So let me do that. So we call, we monitor.
Associated with this number as the West Wing, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington.
There we are. In this case, it just read out the location information for us, so we could hear that in audio and confirm that information is correct.
Okay, so just going to cover some conclusions and go into the Q&A at the end. Maybe even whilst this conclusion slide's there, we had a wee bit of fun playing around with the polling mechanics that's available inside Webex. So if you bear with me a little second, I can find it. Create a couple of questions to ask everybody, if you don't mind giving us an answer. Let me just kick that poll off. So you should get a little kind of poll panel popping up anytime now. Yeah, again, I think video endpoints won't be able to see this content. If you don't mind giving us some feedback, that would be appreciated. So that's just going to just leave that running for 5 minutes, and that would be great if you don't mind answering that. Yep, looks like there's a few folk found it and answering. Perfect, appreciate that. So really, we do have an ask for anybody that's interested, call to action as such, which is if you do want to evaluate non-disruptive testing for remote soft phones in particular, it's something that we want to explore in a bit more detail. In particular, in order for us to do that, we're looking for customers that have third-party solutions such as 9line from Cobian and obviously Red Sky Solutions, in terms of obviously they have their mobile soft phone kind of agent that coordinates and updates the location information really nicely. So we want to kind of speak to a few customers that have that particular configuration in place and evaluate non-disruptive testing with them. You don't have to be a PhoneView customer. We'll provide a license for you if that's required. So if you're interested in looking into that, particular situation with us, if you can just contact sales@unifiedfx.com and we'll have a chat about your environment and testing it. I mean, to be honest as well, I mean, as much as we're kind of focused on some of that stuff from a non-disruptive remote software point of view, even if you just want to try PhoneView out from a 911 testing point of view, just reach out to us anyway. But that's just something in particular that we're want to evaluate in a bit more detail. And if you're not aware already, we've got a few more events in the calendar, another 3 to go so far for this year that are listed. I forgot to get the URL for this, but hopefully Mohammed can dig it out and share it in the chat to go back to the registration site. But if you've if you've received it from us already, you should know where to go, hopefully, to re-register. But even if you have, just a refresher on the dates. So we're going to talk about Webex UC calling next. Just to summarise what that context of that is the Webex client, as in the Webex Teams client as used to be called, or the Spark client before then, or what was the name before that again? Project Square, wasn't it? That was the very first name that I ever came across for that particular client concept. And that now has direct registration to Communication Manager. And the great thing about the way that Cisco have done it is it literally means PhoneView with almost no modification works with those devices, which is great. Then we'll be talking about UnifiedFX, just giving you a kind of refresher on the product for anybody that's not familiar with it, on June timeframe, and the end of June we'll be covering PhoneView and support for Cisco UCM Cloud. Well, the good news is we do support it, and we might not really have a lot of content in that particular session, other than just, as a bit of a placeholder for anybody with questions and interest in that particular topic. But, we'll have gone through the process, etc. of testing with some clients in that particular deployment configuration, and it all seems to be working really well. Okay, so I think we're on to Q&A now.